RDMS.
Whenever I do fight again, I need Christian Reynoso there on commentary. Otherwise, I'm not doing it.
What's up, guys, and welcome to a very special international edition of Reynoso Noso. Christian here, and we are officially going down under. Joining me today, fresh off the heels of not just picking up a huge win, but also a UFC contract on Dana White's Contender series, representing City Kickboxing and facing off against Andre Petroski this Saturday at UFC Perth. Please welcome none other than Australia's own Cam Rowston. What's up, Cam?
What's up? Thanks for having me. I appreciate being on.
Don't be silly, bro. This is awesome. Like, not only are you obviously making your UFC debut, but you're part of this crop of Contender series bangers that are coming out, ready to go, coming out the gate hot. We saw you literally 5 weeks ago to this day on the Contender series, and you're one of these guys that came out and didn't just want to fight, but you wanted to call your shot. You said, Dana, I want to fight in 5 weeks. Well, let's talk about that, and let's talk about whether or not that was a plan to begin with.
Yeah, that was that was in my mind, like because I knew UFC Perth was coming up, and I was like, fuck, if I get like a finish and I'm not too banged up, I don't go through an absolute barn burner war. Like, I'm gonna go over there, I'm gonna go stomp around and then look at Dana in the eye and call for a shot at UFC Perth. And I got the finish, and I was like, after I kind of settled down, got my bearings, like, okay, the fight's over. I was looking around, like, where's Dana? There he is. I walked over, UFC Perth, get me on it. And then, yeah, here we are.
Yeah, it made for like a really good moment. The timing was good. The week before you, Bison versus Serkayev had done that. You know, he's Chimaev's guy, and he's like, I want to fight in 4 days. And then that happened. Then you came on the show, and you're like, I'm ready to go. And it just felt like, I don't know, it was like a similar vibe, a similar sort of energy. And I know the fans loved it. Dana seemed to absolutely love it. And it, you know, in the presser afterwards, I remember you saying something like you were hoping to get, in a perfect world, you get the type of fight in Perth, where you're like a real barn burner, something you could get real bloody and, you know, really give the fans something to enjoy, obviously walk away the winner. And you get slated to fight a real veteran, Andre Petroski, the kind of guy that you just may be more than happy to deliver that kind of a fight.
Yeah. I think like a year ago when my teammate Dan fought Mateus Gamrot, he had that crazy fight. I know the Perth fans, they went nuts over that. They love that shit. Australian fans love fights like that. I'm like, everyone loves fights like that. Just something to get like the fans pumping in the arena. So if I could have something similar to that, that would go down legendary status.
Yeah, no doubt. And he's a dude that likes to scrap. I mean, I'm sure you've done your homework. You saw his fight against Gerald Meerschaert. Like, he's down to bite down to the mouthpiece. But with that being said, he's not the easiest guy to necessarily prepare for, especially on short notice. So I want to ask you about that. Again, tough guy to prepare for on short notice. But you did have a recent opponent change leading up to Contender series. You were initially going to fight John Kuhneman, who was like a tough wrestler that got switched for you on short notice on that fight 5 weeks ago. Was there any sort of like remnants in your camp, or was there any sort of benefit to that kind of helped you jumpstart into the preparation for UFC Perth against Petroski?
Yeah, definitely. That was one thing we were talking about. Me and the coaches during training camp were like, oh, we've already kind of put in like 6-7 weeks of a camp for this kind of style. Like, so even though it is a short notice fight, like I guess the tools are already cleaned and halfway sharpened, ready to come out of the bag. So no, it suited us quite well. But obviously Petroski, I think, is levels above Kuhneman, and it's just going to be a lot more of a dogfight.
Yeah, dogfight, definitely something that like guys can get, or fans can get excited about. And I think it creates a unique situation because you're taking on a legit veteran. I think he's had 11 fights in the UFC dating back to like 2021. Actually, I'd imagine you paid attention to him or you saw him on that season of The Ultimate Fighter because he was on the season where Alexander Volkanovski was a coach against Brian Ortega, and if I'm not mistaken, Brian Ortega. It's all coming together, so I'm having a beautiful moment here. Didn't Brian Ortega chose Andre first for his team that season, so he certainly existed peripherally to you.
Yeah, that's when I kind of first saw him, was like through that season of the Ultimate Fighter. Like I think that was middleweights and welterweights. So it's like that's my weight class. You watch it and you have a look, and obviously it's Volkanovski and stuff like that. Like we got a relationship there. So it was I've seen him pop up through that, and he's been killing it ever since then. Like he's 8-3 in the UFC.
Yeah, but yeah, absolutely. And where I was gonna kind of go with that is like it does, however, paint a unique situation because usually the newcomer taking on the veteran, the fan favor is usually in the corner of the veteran, right? But I don't know, man. UFC Perth, your Australia's own Cam Rowston debuting, it kind of I mean, it's just you guys when you step in the cage, but you just might have a funny situation for me where the newcomer just may be getting a little bit more love from the hometown crowd.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's gonna be swaying in my favor, the crowd support, that's for sure. But I mean, even though he's a veteran in the UFC, like he's had a lot of fights and stuff like that. But I've had a lot of fights as well, albeit not the level that he's fought on. Like I've still had way more kickboxing fights and stuff like that. So I think even though the balance is here on the scales for him in the UFC, like my other experience, I feel like it kind of tips it to about even.
Yeah, and I mean, I always say like when I don't know too much about a fighter, granted I've known of you for a while now, but when I don't know too much about the fighter, I then kind of look at where they're coming from and think about their stablemates. You yourself, of course, coming out of City Kickboxing, I wouldn't dare call it a resurgence, right? Because you guys haven't gone anywhere since exploding onto the scene with Israel Adesanya and Volk, of course, and all these big names years ago. You guys are just kind of those obviously these guys are still fighting Allberg in the main event, but it feels like you kind of represent, as a new signee, especially as a new crop, maybe a new generation coming out of City Kickboxing. I know Dan Hooker called you the most well-rounded, the most well-rounded guy coming out of the gym. I think you called yourself more well-rounded than an Australian $2 coin. So it's like you are him, right? You are that new generation. Do you kind of feel that as well?
Yeah. There's it's obviously not just myself. Navajo Sterling's on the card as well, and we've kind of been the guys who have been pushing up underneath Israel and Carlos, who have the young guys in the gym who they can kind of just fucking throw against the wall, and we come back twice as hard. So we've learned from them. We've seen how they operate, and we've taken the lessons from that, and now it's our turn. So that's like they're like the seniors who are in the high school, and we're, I don't know what the Americans call, like freshmen's. The freshmen's coming in.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But right.
And we got two other guys as well on the road to UFC. Like, Kai Kara France has represented the lower weight classes quite well for the gym, but now we have guys like Aaron Toe and Lawrence Louis, who are both fighting for UFC contracts on road to UFC. So they're also the next generation coming through, not just me and Navajo, but like the smaller weight class. They're the ones that have been helping Kai throughout his whole career.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't mean to leave that name out. Of course, Kai Kara France, another one that just kind of helped really put City Kickboxing on the map, especially for the little guys. So it's not about necessarily filling shoes, right? Because I know you plan to forge your own path, but aside from having that big bloody scrap, in a perfect world, as Cam Rowston writes his own chapter in the UFC for City Kickboxing, for Australia, for yourself, right? What are the things that you're hoping the fans are going to take away starting at UFC Perth?
They're gonna see that there's no quit. Like I haven't had everyone who gets to the UFC, they face some kind of adversity, and I've faced adversity as well getting here, and it's they're just gonna find out that I don't quit. I'm not a quitter.
I think, and I'm not going to take up too much more of your time because I know you're obviously it's fight week or days away, but that kind of leads me almost perfectly to the next thing I wanted to ask you. And I appreciate you talking about the fights and all that good stuff because obviously that's what everybody wants to hear. But you mentioned in the past in other interviews, and it resonated with me, MMA being such a big part of your maturity as a human being, right? You said I think you said something like in your early 20s, it kind of helped pull you out of a lifestyle of partying and something that I mean, I'll be honest, that resonated with me, right? And it can be difficult to pull yourself out of it. So, if you don't mind, for all those that maybe find themselves in that place and maybe are struggling to get out of that rut and are sitting at home and watching somebody like Cam Rouse and somebody like you that's essentially a role model now, what's something you can say back to them coming from someone like you?
Just it's not going to change overnight. You just got to have a saying in the gym with one of the boys. We just stack the days up, stack the days, stack the days. You don't put any bad shit in your body. You don't go out and muck around and Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you just stack the days up of being good and just sticking to the plan. And then, months go by, years go by, and next thing you know, like you haven't ruined your body. You're out of the rut, or you're coming out of the rut. You're starting to feel better. You're losing weight. You're getting healthier. Your knees feel better. Your back feels better and stuff like that. It's just about just taking it one day at a time and just stacking those little wins up. And then next thing you know, you're being so busy on the grind every day and you just come up for air and you're like, oh shit, here I am.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. That's powerful. I think that the term, one day at a time is kind of thrown around generically, but you're absolutely right. I think sometimes you just got to keep doing the right thing. And like that's such a good analogy. You come up and you look for air and you're like, oh shit, I've swam that distance or I've been treading these deep waters for a while. So very cool, my guy. I appreciate you so much, my guy. Any final thoughts, or maybe another? How about you tell all the fans how they can stay up to speed on all things Cam Rowston?
All things Cam Rowston. Obviously, my Instagram. That's where you do my best work at Cam Rowston, and that's also my handle on Threads. On I believe it's called X now. Still call it Twitter, but it's X. What else? And then Cam Rowston MMA on YouTube, and yeah, that's it. Follow along for the journey, and yeah, I can't wait for this weekend.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, my friend. So cool. Really excited to see see how Saturday unfolds and just continue to watch the trajectory of Cam Rowston. So, fight fans, make sure you tune in this Saturday as UFC Perth comes to you live on ESPN Plus. As of course, Cam Rowston faces off against Andre Petroski. We got Carlos Ulberg in the main event taking on Dominic Reyes. A huge night of action. Not going to want to miss any of it. And again, make sure you give Cam a follow and stay up to speed on all things Cam Rowston. Cam, I appreciate you, bro. We'll be in touch.
Appreciate it. Thank you.